why is the actual situation in Iraq left out in the text? And what can be said on the presentation of the casus belli in both of the texts? I'm sorry that I was a bit too long, but maybe we can discuss some of the questions, and maybe you can tell me what you thought after reading the text.
Thank you very much. I chose a title which I'm going to quote again Jelinek, and it is very, I think it gives us a clear idea of what's going on now. And the title is a question she raised herself: how is the war going? It's still closer to the beginning than to the end. So what I'm going to do is my reading of Bambiland, and I have to admit that I did not read the other text. This is the only text which I had. I found it translated into English. The other one hasn't been translated to either English or Arabic. Though I know there are 3 of her books being translated into Arabic, especially they have been translated in Egypt. But none of these texts at all. So it might be a good idea for someone who can speak both languages to start, especially as it is very important text itself, and it's dealing with the reality of what's happening and touching on everybody's life in Iraq and the Middle East in general. So it's an idea. So my reading of the text for the first time, and it is in English, not in German, so forgive me if I miss few things being in, especially in the German language itself. So this reading is based on my involvement in Iraqi politics and intellectual life for 40 years, whether inside Iraq or in exile in the last over 20 years. I recalled while reading the text actually a film more than other texts. It reminded me of the Louis Buñuel film, the Spanish film director, The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. This film it's where, I mean, absolutely from the beginning until the end, you see bizarre events taking places without anyone taking notice. The events almost as if they are really stronger than the characters, stronger than the people. So things can happen for no reason whatsoever, yet the people who are living those events, they gradually accept it. So they become, instead of becoming absurd acts, because bizarre acts, they become acceptable, gradually familiar. And here is the danger of accepting bizarre and absurd acts, like war. And this is really a very striking thing, because then you lose when events become familiar to you, when you become silent about it, when you stop watching it or noticing it, then you hold yourself irresponsible in moral sense. And that's what's happened in America and in Britain, when the American people, though I always make a differentiate between the American administration and the people, or the British government and the people, but when the American people and the British people went for the second time and they elected, and this is a democratic country we're talking about, it's not dictatorship, and they're not in a war zone, but this is a democratic country, so the people went and forgetting about their moral responsibility about a war launched using their names and acts of aggression by their names, and they went and they fought for the second time to George W. Bush and Tony Blair. This is the similarity there. So when I was reading the text, Bambiland, I felt, well, is this a literary text? Or is it a political text? Especially, I mean, we are in the writing, I am a fiction writer, basically. So I'm always warned that if you write about politics, you're going to lose literature. because literature deals, we are told, deals with deep things that deeper, much deeper than what the daily events in politics. So you better stick to literature and leave politics to politicians. It is like has a special shelf life, and you better not touch it. But this is a text really dealt with both. It's managed to deal with both in a fantastic way, enjoyable way, if there is any enjoy in reading about war, about torture, about killing. But because of the many levels of the narrators, the voices you hear during that, for me as an Iraqi, whose country been subjected to aggression and to war and to the killing of people, massacres of the people, not just in Abu Ghraib as mentioned in the text, but in other places, the torture, the abuse of human rights. Reading, I always, while I was reading it, I was looking through the eyes of an American soldier sitting in a tank approaching the desert. So that was my main image all the time. His inner feelings, how is he dealing with things, plus the audience who are the people of those countries which took part in the aggression. And there were many, not just America and Britain, but there were many other countries under the title of multinational forces or the coalition of the willing. So there are so many of them together there. So, or through the eyes of the embedded journalists or the press, the corporations and all that stuff. So there are multi-layers really of looking through this text.
And this missing of Iraqis and the situation in Iraq, including your position in the text, would you agree with that? Would you see it different?
No, of course. I mean, to be honest, this text is very excellent and very violent expression of a Western view, and this makes the whole text difficult on my side or on our side to get into. On the other hand, this is also the force of it, because it talks about things, psychological thoughts, I mean not psychological, let's say more emotional moments, and technological fascination of the art of war, in a way.
Yeah.
And of course, like all texts of Jelinek, it is also she's very fascinated by the male-obsessed sexuality, which she compares also to war, which is of course nothing new since we know Freud and so on and so on. But it's interesting to see that this texture is really guided by her anger and helplessness to do something against the war. And in that moment, it's really very important to understand. She wrote it really in the same moment as all these things happen, and that is really a mastership to do, to be honest, because usually, as I'm talking now as an part of as an artist, this is really difficult, I mean, so in that sense I was really very attracted and in the same time very disturbed by this text, because of course, as Haifa said it, I mean, we, and I still see me as a part of my origin, we are not existing.